Part 2. Galactic Influences over Man and Earth. With galactic or extraterrestrial influences, we mean influences from collective energies that are associated with certain star systems or planets. In the universe there are many levels or dimensions of life. A planet or star can exist in several different dimensions, ranging from material to more esoteric dimensions. In general, the galactic societies that affected the souls existed in a less dense or material reality than you exist on Earth. The galactic empires were inhabited by mature souls that were born long before the Earth souls and whose egoism at that time was at the peak, when the Earth was inhabited by many forms of life and finally by man. The extraterrestrial riches observed this development with great interest. The diversity and the overflow of life forms attracted their attention. They felt that something special was about to happen between the various galactic societies. Many battles had taken place for a long time. This was, in a way, a natural phenomenon, because the consciousness of the involved souls had to fight to get in touch with eye-centering and power. They explored the functioning of the ego, and as they developed, they became very adept at manipulating consciousness. The power they used was both subtle and less subtle mental instruments. The interest that the galactic societies had for the Earth was essentially egocentric. They saw an opportunity to exert their influence in new and powerful ways. One can say that at this point the intergalactic battles had ended up in a dead end. When you fight over and over again, then after a while you achieve a certain balance, a division of power areas, so to speak. You know each other so well that you know where there is room for action and where it is not. The situation thus reached a dead end, and the galactic enemies hoped for new opportunities on Earth. They believed that the Earth could provide the scene in order to renew the battles and thereby release the deadlock. The way in which the galactic societies attempted to exert their influence on the Earth was by manipulating the consciousness of Earth souls. Earth souls were especially susceptible to their influence when they entered their ego stage. Before doing this, they were unacceptable to all from the forthcoming power-motivated powers, because they themselves had no addiction for exercising power. You are unacceptable for aggressiveness and power when there is nothing within yourself that these energies can join. So the galactic energies could not access earthbound consciousness before these souls decided to explore the energy of power themselves. The transition to the ego state made Earth souls vulnerable because, apart from their intention to explore ego consciousness, they were still innocent and naive. Because of this, it was not difficult for the galactic forces to impose their energies on the souls. The way they seemed was through consciousness manipulation and mind control. The technology was very sophisticated. They used mainly mental tools, not different to brainwashing, through subconscious, hypnotic suggestions. They seemed at the mental and astral levels, but they also affected people right up to the physical body level. They influenced the development of human brain by limiting the range of experiences that were available to humans. They stimulated mainly fear-related emotion and thought patterns. Fear was already present in the souls and is a result of the pain and longing for the source that every young soul carries within. The galactic forces took this existing fear as a starting point to, as much as possible, to reinforce the energies of fear and submission to the soul's consciousness and feelings. This enabled them to control human consciousness. The Galactic Wars then tried to defeat the former galactic enemies through man. The battle for power over humanity was a battle between old galactic enemies who used people as the bulges. The fragile sense of individuality of land souls and autonomy were stifled in the wounds through this violent intervention, this war of humanity's soul. But the galactic attackers could not really deprive them of the freedom. How massive the extraterrestrial influences were yet, the divine essence of each individual soul consciousness remained indestructible. The soul can't be destroyed, though its free and divine nature for a long time can be resolved. This is explained by the fact that power is ultimately not real. Power always achieves its goals through the illusions of fear and ignorance. It can only hide, it can't in truth create or destroy anything. In addition, this attack on Earth souls would not only bring darkness to the Earth, it would inadvertently initiate a profound change in the consciousness of the Galactic Warriors. A development towards the next stage of consciousness, enlightenment or the other virginity. The galactic roots of lightworkers. What connection does the concept of lightworkers have with this story? Before they came to Earth to incarnate in human bodies, the lightworkers had for a long time inhabited several star systems. In terms of the 3 stages of consciousness development, they spent much of the maturation period there. It was during this stage that they explored the ego consciousness and all the power issues related to it. It was in this stage that they investigated darkness and as they abused the power to a great extent. In this galactic stage, lightworkers were co-creators of human development. Like other galactic forces, their intention was to use man as a puppet to acquire dominance in other parts of the universe. It is difficult to explain the techniques that the galactic powers used in the struggles because there is no equivalent in your world. In any case, not to the extent that they made them perfect. Essentially, Galactic War technology was based on non-materialistic energy science. They knew the power of psyche and they knew that consciousness creates physical reality. The metaphysics were more adequate than the materialistic approaches of your current scientists. During the Cro-Magnon period, the light-working hunters interfered with the natural development of man at a genetic level. You should understand this genetic intervention as an upside-down manipulation process. They embodied the human brain consciousness with a particular thought form that influenced the physical, cellular layers within the organism. The effect of these mental embellishments was that a robot-like mechanical element was installed in the human brain, which removed parts of the natural strength and self-consciousness of human beings. It was an artificial implant that made man more suitable as an instrument for the extraterrestrial strategic goals. By interfering with the development of life on Earth in this way, the lightworkers are raping on the natural course of things. They did not respect the integrity of the souls who inhabited the emerging human species. In a way, they make it up to the newly acquired free will. But as we indicated at the end of the last paragraph, there is a way in which no one can steal the free will of one's soul. But because of it at all levels of extraterrestrial superiority, souls almost lost their sense of self-determination. The lightworkers regarded the people as tools, as things that helped them achieve their goals. At this stage, they were not yet ready to respect life as valuable in themselves. They did not see in their enemies or slaves, a living soul like themselves. Now there is no reason to judge because all this is just part of a profound awareness development. At the deepest level there is no debt, only free choices. There are no victims, no perpetrators. In the end there is only experience. You, the lightworkers who once used these dark means of oppression, judged afterwards, are very hard for the actions you committed. Even now, you carry a deep sense of guilt within you that you partially aware of as feeling that you're never good enough whatever you do. This feeling stems from a misunderstanding. It is important to understand that lightworker is not something you are or not. It's something you become when you complete the journey of experience by experiencing light and darkness. If we would give you a name, we would call you the Christian souls instead of lightworkers. Have you ever had the experience that a hard mistake you made eventually changed things in a positive and unexpected way? Something similar happened as a result of the galactic interference on Earth and with humanity, in the process of embossing the souls of the Earth with their energies. In fact, the galactic powers created a large melting pot of impact on the Earth. One could say that the contradictory elements within the various galactic souls were implanted within humanity as a race and thereby forced people to find ways to unite them or bring them to peaceful coexistence. Although this meant that the souls of the souls became considerably more complicated, this would ultimately create the best opportunity for a positive breakthrough, a way out of the deadlock reached by the galactic conflicts. Keep in mind that all things are interconnected. There is a level on which Earth the souls and the galactic souls were driven by the same intent. This is the angelic level. Every soul is an angel in its deepest core. At the angelic level, both the Galactic Warriors and Earth agreed the souls to take part in this cosmic drama as described above. The galactic interference not only helped the Earth to become the melting pot it was supposed to become, it also marked the origin of a new type of consciousness within the Galactic Warriors. In an unforeseen way, this marked the end of the ego stage, the end of the maturation period and the beginning of something new. The intergalactic war had come to an end before the Earth came into the picture. When the battle was repeated on Earth, it was in fact only moved to the ground. With this transfer, something began to change within galactic consciousness. The time of the Galactic War was over. Even though the galactic souls remained actively involved with humanity and the Earth, they slowly retreated to the role of observers. In this role, they began to become aware of a certain kind of fatigue within themselves. They felt emptiness inward. Although the struggle continued, this did not fascinate as much as it once did. They began to ask philosophical questions such as, what is the meaning of my life? Why do I fight all the time? Does the power make me really happy? By asking these questions, the warfare grew stronger. The Galactic Warriors gradually reached the end of their ego stage. They had transferred the energy of ego and power struggle to the Earth, a place where energy was open to this energy. The human souls just started the exploration of the ego's conscious state. Within the consciousness of the Galactic Wars, a certain space was created, a room for doubt, a room for reflection. They entered a transformation phase that we will describe by distinguishing the following steps. 1. Be unsatisfied with what the self-consciousness has to offer. Longing for something else. Beginning to end. 2. Become aware of their ties to self-consciousness. Feel it and let go of the feelings and thoughts that are associated with it. The middle of the end. 3. Let the old, unblocked energies within them die. Free themselves from the cocoon. Become the new self. The end of the end. 4. The awakening of the heart-based consciousness within it. Motivated by love and freedom, help others make this transition. These 4 steps mark the transition from self-centered consciousness. Please keep in mind that both the Earth, humanity and the galactic empires undergo this phase, but not at the same time. The planet Earth now takes the 3rd step. Many of your lightworkers also take this 3rd step in harmony with the Earth's inner process. Some of you still struggle with step 2 and there are some who have come to step 4, who have felt the inspiration and joy and love in their hearts. However, large parts of humanity do not wish to free themselves from self-consciousness. They have not yet entered the transition phase step 1. This is not something to judge or criticize or mourn. Try to see it as a natural process like the growth of a plant. You do not judge a flower because it's a bud instead of full bloom. Try to see it that way. Moral condemnation of the destructive effects of the unobtrusive consciousness in your world is based on the lack of insight into spiritual dynamics. Additionally, it weakens your own strength, because the anger and frustration you sometimes feel when watching the news or reading newspapers cannot be transformed into something constructive. It just exaggerates you and lowers your own vibration level. Try to see things remotely. From an attitude of trust, try to intuitively feel the undercurrents of collective consciousness. The things you hardly read or hear in the media. It serves nothing to try to change souls that are still stuck in the reality of the self-consciousness. They do not want your help because they are not open to the heart-based energies that you, light workers, want to share with them. Even though it seems to you they need help, as long as they do not want it, they do not need it. As simple as that. Lightworkers are very fond of giving and helping, but they often lose the discernment in this area. This causes energy to be wasted and can result in self-doubt and disappointment with the lightworker. Please use the ability to distinguish here, because the desire to help tragically can become a trap for lightworkers that prevents them from truly completing step 3 of the transition. The term helping is further discussed in the section Traps on the Road to Becoming a Healer. We will now finish our description of the lightwork at the end of the ego dad. As we said earlier, together with other galactic kingdoms. You influenced humanity during the period when modern man was designed. When you more and more began to assume the role of observers, you became tired of fighting. The power you sought for a long time resulted in a kind of dominance that worsened the unique and individual characteristics of those you dominated. This meant that nothing new could come into your reality. You killed everything that was different. This approach, after a while, is actually static and predictable. When you came to the awareness of the emptiness of the power struggle, your consciousness opened up to new opportunities. A longing for something else occurred. You had completed step 1 in the transition to heart consciousness. The ego energies, which had been controlled freely in eons, calmed down and allowed room for something else. In your hearts a new energy woke up like a loving flower. A subtle and quiet voice began to tell you about home, a place you once knew but lost contact with over time. You felt home in your life. Just like Earth souls, you once experienced the ocean state of unity from which every soul was born. You gradually evolved from this ocean to individual units of consciousness. Like these little souls, you were eager to explore. But at the same time you were within the painful memory of a paradise you had to leave behind. When you later entered the ego of consciousness, this pain was still within you. What you mainly tried to do was fill this empty place in your hearts with power. You tried to satisfy yourself by playing the game of war and conquest. Power is the energy most opposed to unity. By exercising power, you isolate yourself from the other. By fighting for power, you distance yourself even more from home, the consciousness of unity. The fact that power leads you away from home instead of bringing you closer was long hidden for you because power is heavily intertwined with illusion. Power can easily hide its true face for a naive and inexperienced soul. Power creates the illusion of abundance, satisfaction, recognition and even love. Ego stage is an unlimited exploration of power, of winning, losing, fighting, dominating and manipulating, being the perpetrator and being the victim. At the inner level, the soul is broken during this stage. Ego stage represents an attack on the soul's integrity. With integrity, we mean the natural entity and the whole of the soul. As you enter into the self-conscious consciousness, the soul ends in a state of schizophrenia. It loses its virginity. On the one hand, fighting and conquering the soul. On the other hand, realizes that it is wrong to harm and destroy other living beings. It is not the question that it is wrong according to any objective team or judge, but the soul realizes subconsciously that it does something contradicting its own divine nature. It is in the nature of its inner divine essence to create and give life. When the soul acts on the basis of a desire of personal power, deep inside is a sense of guilt. Again, there is no one who is guilty of the guilt of the future. The soul itself realizes that it is losing its virginity and purity, while the soul chases off to power on the outside. A growing sense of unworthiness eats it from within. The stage of self-consciousness is a natural stage in the journey of the soul. This stage actually contains the full exploration of an aspect of the soul, will. Your will forms the bridge between the inner and outer world. The will is the part of you that focuses your soul's energy into the material world. The will may be inspired by the desire of power or of the desire for unity. This depends on the stage of your inner consciousness. When a soul reaches the end of the ego, the will becomes more and more an extension of the heart. The ego, or personal will, is not destroyed but flows in accordance with the heart's wisdom and inspiration. At this point, the ego happily accepts the heart as its spiritual guide. The natural nature of the soul is restored. When you, the lightworkers, came to step 2 in the transition from self-centered consciousness, you felt a sincere longing for correcting what you had done on Earth. You realized that you had dealt with the living people poorly and that you prevented the free expression and development of the souls. You understood that you had been raped on life yourself by trying to manipulate and control it according to your needs. You wanted to free the people from the bands of fear and constraints that brought so much darkness into their lives, and you felt that the way you could accomplish this was by incarnating in human body. Yes. So you incarnated into human bodies whose genetic traits were partly created by yourselves to transform your creation from the inside. The souls who came to Earth with this mission intended to spread light into their own manipulated creations. Therefore, they're called lightworkers. You took the decision to get involved in a whole series of earthly lives based on a newborn sense of responsibility, but also because of the heartfelt strong desire to assume this karmic burden to enable the total release of the past. To enable the total release of the past.